On a quiet summer afternoon in the coastal town of Southport, what should have been a joyful dance event turned into a scene of unthinkable horror. Within just 14 minutes, lives were lost, childhoods were shattered, and a community was forever changed. This is the story of the Southport Stabbings, an attack that stunned the UK and raised urgent questions about warning signs, prevention, and justice. In this video, we'll unravel the shocking events behind one of the most disturbing crimes in recent memory. Covering the killer's dark past, missed warning signs, the heartbreaking stories of the victims, chilling moments from the courtroom, and the lasting scars left behind. Axel Rudakubana was born on August 7, 2006 in Cardiff, Wales. Axel Rudakubana was born on August 7, 2006 in Cardiff, Wales. To Alphonse Rudakubana and Letitia Muzair, both evangelical Christian Tutsis, originally from Rwanda, who immigrated to the UK in 2002. He held British citizenship and had an older brother. In 2013, when Axel was around 7 years old, the family relocated from the Thornhill area of Cardiff to Banks, a village near Southport in Lancashire. They settled in a mid-terrace 3-bedroom house on old-school clothes, part of a newly built cul-de-sac. Neighbors described the Rudakubana family as quiet and unremarkable, noting that they were actively involved in their local church community. As a child, Axel was involved in various extracurricular activities, including musical theater, football, and karate. He even appeared in a BBC Children in Need promotional video dressed as the 10th Doctor and performed in a musical at the Shaftesbury Theatre in 2017.
It's that time of year again! You could even dress up as every Doctor Who ever. Do your thing for children in need!
Despite these positive engagements, signs of trouble emerged during his early adolescence. Let's begin by looking at the many missed opportunities and instances where intervention might have made a real difference, and perhaps even prevented this tragedy from unfolding. At school, Axel Rudakubana struggled with anger management, impulse control, and authority, which was frequently noted by teachers. He had regular outbursts over minor frustrations and a difficulty following basic rules. Some of Axel's former classmates described him as being isolated and having a history of violent talk. They recalled him often making disturbing statements about violence, including comments about hurting others. Axel's threats were not limited to words. He created a hit list of people he hated, openly discussed his desire to stab people, and even spoke about getting teachers murdered. A few classmates mentioned feeling uneasy around him due to his aggressive demeanor and the threatening nature of his comments. Specific incidents at school include being caught researching mass shootings on school computers and often drawing disturbing images involving weapons and attacks. He disturbingly praised the 2017 Manchester Arena bombing, in which 22 people were killed, calling it a good thing. He also made a chilling request during an art lesson, asking for a picture of a severed head. There was even one incident Rudakubana was caught on video being dramatically held back by fellow pupils at Range High School after trying to attack a child who he accused of bullying him. In chaotic scenes, Rudakubana is seen lunging as at least 3 other pupils and a teacher surround him, while other children watch on from their classroom desks. The scene was captured by a fellow student in this video and posted to social media. This was the final straw. Axel Rudakubana was expelled from Range High School in October 2019. After admitting to bringing a knife to school on approximately 10 occasions, this expulsion followed a disturbing incident where, at age 13, he anonymously contacted Childline, admitting to having murderous thoughts about the bully. He said he had taken a kitchen knife to school on 10 occasions and asked, "What should I do if I want to kill somebody?" This admission led to police involvement and his subsequent permanent exclusion from the school. In December 2019, just 2 months after being expelled from Range High School for repeatedly bringing a knife onto school grounds, Axel Rudakubana returned to the school with a hockey stick that had the names of classmates and teachers written on it. He used the stick to assault a former pupil, fracturing the student's wrist. When police responded, they discovered a knife in Axel's backpack, further escalating the seriousness of the incident. He was arrested and later pleaded guilty in youth court, receiving a 12-month referral order, a rehabilitative sentence aimed at addressing offending behavior in juveniles. Despite the violent nature of the assault and the possession of a weapon, the response remained within the bounds of the youth justice system, and Axel avoided custody. Afterward, Axel was enrolled at the Acorn School, which provides specialist education for students with additional needs. He later transferred to Pressfield High School in Specialist College, where he briefly attended sixth form for only a few days before transitioning to home visits. Due to concerns about his behavior, the school occasionally requested a police presence during these visits. By 2021, during his time at these schools, Axel was referred to a program in the UK called Prevent 3 times by teachers from schools he attended. The Prevent program is part of the UK's counter-terrorism strategy, designed to identify and support individuals at risk of radicalization. It is important to note that this isn't a criminal justice program. It is referred as a safeguarding measure. Anyone, including teachers or police, can make a referral if someone shows signs of extremist views or dangerous behavior. Once referred, a panel reviews the case and, if necessary, offers support through a voluntary program called Channel. These 3 referrals occurred between December 2019 and April 2021. The first referral occurred in December 2019 at Range High School when Axel was just 13. Teachers flagged him for carrying a knife and researching school shootings on school computers. The second referral came in February 2021 when Axel, at 14, was found researching online content related to Libya and Colonel Gaddafi. His third and final referral in April 2021 was triggered by his searches for information on the London bombings, the IRA, and the Israel-Palestine conflict. Despite these clear warning signs, Axel's referrals to Prevent were dismissed. Authorities ruled that he did not meet the threshold for action, a decision that would later be seen as tragically short. The handling of Axel's case drew significant backlash following the Southport stabbings. In a review of the case, Home Office Minister Don Jarvis explained that too much focus had been placed on the absence of a distinct ideology, rather than considering the perpetrator's vulnerabilities, grievances, and complex needs. Jarvis noted, the review concluded that too much focus was placed on the absence of a distinct ideology, to the detriment of considering the perpetrator's susceptibility, grievances, and complex needs. He also pointed out that during Axel's second referral, his name had been spelled differently from the first, which led to a Prevent supervisor being unable to locate the previous referral. This, Jarvis suggested, may have caused the case to be closed quickly on minimal information. Long before the Southport stabbings, Axel Rudakubana had several encounters with law enforcement, each one a missed opportunity to intervene more decisively. In March 2022, at just 15 years old, Axel was reported missing by his mother. Police eventually located him riding a public bus. He was carrying a knife and refused to pay his fare. When questioned, Axel told officers he wanted to stab someone. Not out of rage, but because he believed doing so would result in his phone being seized and wiped by police. He was fixated on removing embarrassing videos from social media accounts he no longer had access to. Rather than arresting him despite this being his second NIF-related offense, officers chose to drive him home. They warned his mother to keep all knives out of reach. No formal action was taken. Just weeks later, police returned to the Rudakubana home after Axel had a violent outburst, when his father confiscated his laptop. Fearing for their safety, his parents pleaded with officers for help managing his behavior. While each visit prompted a referral to local safeguarding teams, there was little continuity between interventions. In total, between October 2019 and May 2022, Lancashire Constabulary responded to at least 5 separate calls involving Axel. These included public disturbances, verbal altercations, and threats made toward strangers. In every instance, police responded, but consistently deemed his behavior not serious enough to justify an arrest or more intensive intervention. Privately, some officers suspected deeper issues, but crucial information, including Axel's history with Prevent the UK's counter-terrorism referral program, was stored in a separate system, accessible to frontline officers. That disconnect between police and counter-terrorism services would later be cited as a likely failure point in the public inquiry. Axel's increasingly erratic behavior, threats, and fixation on violence were well documented. But the response from police remained fragmented. There were warnings without follow-through, referrals without enforcement. Each missed opportunity allowed him to sink further into isolation and radicalization, unchecked and uncontained. People who knew him later described him as someone who often made disturbing comments about violence. He'd joke about horrific acts or casually bring up violent fantasies. Most brushed it off as edgy humor shock value for attention. But looking back, those comments weren't jokes. They were warnings. Axel Rudakubana's family also made numerous attempts to seek help for his escalating behavior long before the tragic Southport stabbings. His parents, particularly his father, remained actively involved in trying to get him the support he needed, even in the months leading up to the attack. Along with calling for police intervention multiple times, they sought mental health support for Axel. Axel was referred to child and adolescent mental health services. But after an initial assessment, social work support was deemed unnecessary, a decision that, in hindsight, would be viewed as a significant missed opportunity. Instead, he was placed on an early help plan meant to support both his behavior and his emotional well-being. He also received an education, health, and care plan, a document outlining the extra help he needed in school. But despite these efforts, Axel struggled to stay engaged. By February 2023, he had completely disengaged from mental health services. Although the family involved multiple agencies such as education authorities, mental health services, social workers, and police, the support systems in place failed to prevent Axel's ongoing radicalization and deterioration. He became increasingly isolated, spending long periods alone in his room, immersed in digital spaces that glorified mass violence, conspiracy, and hate. In 2021, Axel had downloaded a banned Al-Qaeda training manual. This material is outlawed under UK terrorism laws due to its explicit instructions on how to carry out attacks. Investigators later confirmed he was using the manual to research how to kill with a knife. But that was only the beginning. He joined fringe communities that celebrated mass attackers, shared disturbing memes, and encouraged violence against civilians. Axel wasn't just watching, he was actively learning. His search history included detailed queries on how to maximize casualties during public stabbings, what toxins could be manufactured at home, how to bypass law enforcement detection. By 2022, his behavior had escalated. He used encrypted software and anonymous online tools to purchase weapons from Amazon, as well as dangerous materials, including castor beans, a key ingredient in the deadly toxin ricin. He also ordered lab equipment like flasks, funnels, and safety goggles. To avoid suspicion, these items were delivered to a neighbor's house using their address. These screenshots show a text exchange between Axel's father and a neighbor regarding packages that had been mistakenly delivered to the neighbor's address. The neighbor wrote, "Hi, El. I've had 2 more parcels delivered from Amazon with my address on. Can you get this sorted, please?" Axel's father replied, "It's sorted now. These were the last orders, I am told. He'll use our address next time. Thanks." It was later stated that Axel's father was unaware of the contents of these packages. Subsequently, his father banned him from using his laptop, which led to a physical altercation where the police were called. After the Southport attack on July 29th, these items Axel ordered were later discovered when police searched Axel's home and banks. Under his bed, officers found a sealed food container containing ricin, which is a biological toxin, estimated to be 6,000 times more poisonous than cyanide. Nearby, they also discovered the pestle and mortar, a lab beaker, and safety goggles. One of the knives he purchased, identical to the one used in the attack, was also found. Additional items included a machete, 12 archery arrows, and lethal crossbow was found in the bag where Rudakubana kept his newest knives. In addition to trying to limit his online presence, Axel's family also turned to their faith community, hoping that spiritual support might help guide him. Active in their church, they sought guidance and attempted to steer Axel through religious support. Church leaders later described him as deeply troubled, but not beyond saving. Despite these efforts, the signs of danger became more alarming. Just 1 week before the attack, Axel's father stopped him from taking a taxi to Range High School, where he had been expelled 5 years earlier. His father believed that he was on his way to commit a violent act. Axel was wearing the same hooded sweatshirt and surgical mask he would later wear during the killings at the Hart studio. His father pleaded with the taxi driver not to take him, clearly sensing the potential for harm. This interaction between Axel's father and the taxi driver was captured on camera outside the family home. The video is now playing on the screen. His father can be seen approaching the vehicle and pleading with the driver not to take Axel anywhere. Although the exact words are unclear, the plea appears successful, as Axel is later seen exiting the taxi wearing a green hoodie and surgical mask. Despite years of effort by his family to intervene, support him emotionally, spiritually, and clinically, Axel continued to spiral. His descent into isolation, rage, and obsession with violence went uncontained, ultimately leading to devastating consequences. By the time Axel carried out the Southport stabbings, the portrait of who he was had already been painted, a young man with a long history of red flags. This tragedy was not the result of a single missed opportunity. It was the culmination of years of warnings that went unheeded across multiple systems. Professionals knew Axel posed a risk. He was on the radar of CAPS, safeguarding teams, school staff, and police. He had openly expressed violent ideation, downloaded terrorist manuals, and ordered materials to create chemical weapons. Yet, none of these serious concerns ever connected in a way that prompted decisive intervention. All the warning signs were there: emotional instability, an obsession with violence, multiple run-ins with police, school expulsion, and repeated family pleas for help. In the end, these fractured responses allowed Axel's descent to continue unchecked, leading to a tragedy that, in hindsight, may have been preventable. The Southport stabbings. A timeline of tragedy on July 29, 2024. A devastating mass stabbing occurred at the Hart Space dance studio in Southport, Merseyside, England. That morning, 26 children between the ages of 6 and 11 were attending a Taylor Swift-themed yoga and dance workshop, led by instructors Leanne Lucas and Heidi Little. The workshop, promoted by Lucas on Instagram, promised a fun-filled day of yoga, dance, and bracelet making. It had quickly sold out. Hart Space, located on the first floor of Norwood Business Park, was a well-loved community venue known for hosting yoga, dance, and parenting classes. But just a few miles away, 17-year-old Axel Rudakubana was preparing for an act of horrifying violence at his home in Banks, Lancashire. Armed with a 20-centimeter kitchen knife purchased from Amazon, Axel left his house wearing a green hoodie with the hood up and a surgical mask. At 11:10 a.m., he was captured on CCTV at a bus stop, calling a taxi under the false name, Simon. In this clip, you can see Axel on the phone at the bus stop. Minutes later, he briefly returned home, before being picked up at 11:30 for the 4.5-mile trip to Southport. The taxi dropped him off on Hart Street shortly before 11:45 a.m. When stopped, Axel questioned the driver where 34A Hart Street was, and the driver pointed it out for him. The driver then asked Axel whether he would be paying cash or card multiple times, but Axel ignored questions about payment, exited the vehicle, and began walking away.
It's down there. It's down there. Let's range you up. We cash your card, mate. It's just the 34A, yeah. We cash your card, mate. Membership required. We cash your card, mate.
The driver followed him, demanding payment and threatening to call the police.
You pay now, or the police are on the way.
Axel continued walking until he ended up at a nearby car repair shop. Colin Perry, the shop owner, and his employee James Dixon, confronted Axel after hearing the commotion. When challenged, Axel said, "What are you going to do about it?" and walked off again. Still refusing to pay the fare, Axel made his way to Hart Space. CCTV captured him approaching the locked front doors of the studio, but he found an unlocked side entrance. At exactly 11:45 a.m., he entered the building, climbed the stairs to the first-floor studio, and opened the door. Inside, the children were laughing, posing with a Taylor Swift cardboard cutout, making bracelets, and doing yoga. Without a word, Axel lunged at the nearest child with his knife and began stabbing. Instructor Leanne Lucas initially didn't grasp what was happening. As he moved to another child, she shouted, "Who is that?" But Axel didn't respond. He continued attacking anyone he could reach. Leanne tried to intervene and protect the children, suffering 5 stab wounds in the process, to her spine, head, ribs, lung, and shoulder blade. Her bravery would save multiple lives. Several girls escaped to the stairwell, frozen in terror. One survivor recalled watching him stab a child before turning the knife on her. He stabbed her in the arm and back, but she managed to run and shouted for others to flee. She led a group of 10 girls out of the building and across the street, where a local resident named Steve took them into his home and waited with them until emergency services arrived. Leanne, despite her injuries, also shouted for the children to run and called 999. She looked back and saw Axel still in his green hoodie chasing after them. Back inside, CCTV later showed Axel dragging a young girl trying to flee back into the studio. She eventually escaped and collapsed outside. At 11:47 a.m., Merseyside police received the first emergency call. The Northwest Ambulance Service was alerted soon after. Window cleaner Joel Verrette, 25, was driving by with a coworker. When he saw injured children fleeing, Leanne flagged him down, bleeding heavily, and told him children were still inside. Joel ran to a nearby car where a mother had just picked up 4 girls. One girl inside was gravely wounded. Joel opened the door and said he saw many holes in her body. He carried her to safety, then ran toward the studio. Inside the building, Jonathan Hayes, who worked in an office across from the studio, heard screams. He opened his door and saw a bleeding child on the floor and Axel standing over her. When Hayes tried to intervene, Axel stabbed him in the leg. Meanwhile, James Dixon, Colin Perry's employee, also sprang into action. Recognizing the screams were ones of terror, he ran outside and found a young girl collapsed. She looked up at him and asked if she was going to die. He scooped her up and assured her that she was going to be all right. James's quick thinking saved the 7-year-old's life. At 11:57 a.m., Sergeant Gillespie was the first officer to arrive. He found Axel still holding the knife. When ordered to drop it, Axel complied. Officers tackled and tased him, placing him under arrest. Verrette followed police inside and described seeing blood everywhere. He helped carry another injured child out of the building. Meanwhile, police discovered instructor Heidi Little hiding in a bathroom, protecting a young girl. This is the clip of officers and Joel running up to the building before arresting Axel.
Stand back, stay. Right. Ambulance is with a child on the floor, not breathing. There's a male in the building going in to try and detain him.
Watch out, don't go. Yeah, you need a gun, mate, that's doing nothing.
Are you safe in there?
1-6, how many casualties have you got? That job at stop making trauma bags.
Yeah, need taser to me, please. Use a taser, yeah?
Taser!
How many?
At least one.
They just went straight through that open door. As soon as they went in, they could see.
By 12 p.m., Axel was arrested on suspicion of attempted murder. Just 3 minutes later, the charge was upgraded to include suspicion of murder. This is the clip of him being arrested. In total, Axel had stabbed 11 children and 2 adults, Leanne Lucas and Jonathan Hayes. 3 young girls died from their injuries. Alice de Silva Aguiar, age 9, Bebe King, age 6, Elsie Dot Stancombe. Age 7, Axel Rudakubana was taken to Copy Lane Police Station and remains silent during all interviews. To this day, no motive has been revealed. Although the terrifying ordeal lasted only 14 minutes, it left behind a lifetime of trauma for the victims, their families, and everyone affected. Before we go any further, I want to take a moment to remember the innocent lives affected by this heartbreaking tragedy. These were vibrant, loving children with dreams, passions, and families who adored them. Their stories deserve to be shared with care and compassion. Elsie Dot Stancombe. Elsie was described by her family as a truly unforgettable little girl who brought light, love, and joy into the lives of everyone who knew her. A devoted Swiftie, she adored Taylor Swift and watched the Eras Tour concert film every night before bed. She loved dancing, but truly found her passion in cheerleading, her parents said. She eagerly looked forward to her weekly classes and gave 100% in everything she did. Her determination and spirit stood out, whether she was completing a 3K run. Her favorite story was Jack and the Beanstalk, and she had just started learning to sew with her great-aunt, who described her as absolutely the sweetest child you could ever wish to meet. Here is a clip of Elsie putting her sewing skills to work.
She loved it, didn't she? She was so creative. She used to love going to like Hobbycraft or somewhere, didn't she? And picking out her fabrics.
So she'd choose her fabrics, we'd cut patterns out, we've created tops, dresses.
Jennifer Sefton, the head teacher at Farnborough Road Infant School, called Elsie such a caring and charismatic young lady who loved to please, remembered her as a loving and bright member of our wonderful community. Elsie's funeral was a deeply moving celebration of her life. Mourners, including the family dog Bobby, gathered outside St. John's Church in Birkdale as a horse-drawn carriage brought her coffin through streets lined with pink ribbons. Her coffin, topped with flowers and a blue cuddly toy, was carried up a pink carpet and through a balloon arch, with her cheerleading squad Vortex cheer, forming a guard of honor as bubbles floated in the air. As the service ended, a young woman sang one of Elsie's favorite songs, Taylor Swift's Love Story. Her parents, Jenny and David Stancombe, have since launched a charity in her honor called Elsie's Story, which aims to support children in need and carry on the love and determination that defined her short but beautiful life. Alice Aguiar. Alice Aguiar, affectionately known as Princess Alice by her family, was a joyful and energetic child with a deep love for dance, animals, and the simple pleasures of life. Her mother, Ms. Aguiar, shared that Alice began baby ballet at just 16 months old and had been dancing ever since. At 4, she joined Southport Dance Academy, where she was taught by her beloved ballet instructor, Heidi Little. 2 years before her death, Alice added street dance to her routine at the same academy. She later paused those classes when Ms. Liddell went on maternity leave, an interruption that left Alice feeling fuming, according to her mom. Still, she remained passionate about dancing, continuing ballet every Saturday and joining cheerleading on Thursdays at the YMCA. She was also part of her school choir, performing every Tuesday. Alice was a Portuguese national living in Southport and attended Churchtown Primary School, where she was cherished by classmates and staff alike. Her head tiker, Ginny Payne, described her as a curious girl who never forgot the details. Her father, Sergio Aguiar, honored her memory by running the London Marathon, raising money to build a new playground at Alice's school, an act that reflected the spirit of giving that defined the family. At her funeral, Alice's uncle, Richard Lira, delivered a heartfelt eulogy written by her parents. Holding back tears, he read their words. Alice was their perfect dream child, who moved our world with her confidence and empathy. She was described as playful, energetic, friendly, and always so respectful. Alice loved cuddling with her parents in bed and watching TV with popcorn. Though only 7, she had already begun her journey from a little girl to a budding preteen, taking interest in makeup and skincare. Here is a clip of Alice to get a feel of who she was.
Buddy-do. And now, guys, but thank you for watching all my videos. Get this started, and no one knows, but look at my eyeshadows. Bye, guys. See you later. Bye. To be like, hey, guys, today is me. I got my makeup on to test my teacher. Look at this. Buddy-do. And now, guys, but thank you for watching all my videos. Get this started, and no one knows, but look at my eyeshadow.
Her family, who said she was born and raised into love, continues to be supported by both the local community and Portuguese officials as they mourn her unimaginable loss. At her celebration of life, about 300 people gathered near the church to pay tribute. Some guests held balloons, others released bubbles into the air. As the cortege arrived, a round of applause broke out, honoring the bright spirit Alice had been. Pink ribbons and balloons were tied to lampposts and garden walls, lining the path in a show of love and remembrance. In a touching message, Alice's parents said, "Keep smiling and dancing like you love to do, our princess. Like we said before to you, you're always our princess, and no one would change that." Bebe King. Bebe King, remembered by her family, is full of joy, light, and love, was a vibrant 6-year-old whose presence brought warmth and laughter to everyone she met. Her parents, Lauren and Ben King, described her as a sweet, kind, and spirited girl who will forever be their shimmering star. Bebe had a deep love for music and dance. It's often singing Taylor Swift's Love Story at the top of her lungs in the car and dancing in front of the mirror. Her mother fondly recalled how Bebe could make her belly laugh, with her impressions and silly accents. At school, Bebe was known for her kindness and inclusivity. Her head taker at Churchtown Primary School, Ginny Payne, described her as a joyful girl whose kindness radiated through the entire Churchtown community. Tragically, Bebe's older sister, Jeannie, witnessed the attack but managed to escape. Her parents praised Jeannie's incredible strength and courage, noting that her resilience is a testament to the deep bond the sisters shared. In the wake of the tragedy, the community showed immense support. Pink lights, bows, balloons, cards, and candles were placed throughout Sefton and Liverpool in Bebe's memory. Her family expressed gratitude for the outpouring of love, stating, "Our hearts are broken, but we find some comfort in knowing that Bebe was so deeply loved by all who knew her." Bebe's funeral was held privately, with her family requesting privacy during the ceremony. They encouraged others to light a candle in her memory, a gesture that many in the community embraced. Bebe's legacy of joy, kindness, and love continues to inspire all who knew her. Her family holds her memory close, cherishing the moments they shared and the light she brought into their lives. 3 bright, beloved girls whose lives were tragically cut short, leaving behind a wave of heartbreak in the Southport community and beyond. Each of them was known not only for their talents and passions, but for their kindness, joy, and the deep love they shared with their families and friends. Together, Elsie, Alice, and Bebe are remembered not only for the tragedy of their loss, but for the light they brought into the world. Their spirits continue to shine in the lives of those who loved them. In the aftermath of the harrowing attack at a Taylor Swift-themed dance class in Southport, the community sought justice for the innocent lives lost and forever altered. The legal proceedings against 18-year-old Axel Rudakubana unfolded with intense public scrutiny, revealing chilling details and prompting national conversations about safety, justice, and systemic failures. On July 31, 2024, Axel Rudakubana was officially charged with 3 counts of murder, 10 counts of attempted murder, and 1 count of possessing a bladed article. Due to his age 17 at the time, reporting restrictions in England and Wales initially protected his identity. However, on August 1st, Liverpool Crown Court lifted those restrictions, citing public unrest and widespread misinformation. The judge noted that keeping his identity secret just days before his 18th birthday risked further unrest. As his name would soon become public anyway, at the time of the attack, Merseyside police did not identify a clear motive and stated that the incident was not being treated as terrorism. That changed in October 2024, when Rudakubana was charged under the Biological Weapons Act, 1974, and the Terrorism Act, 2000. Authorities discovered he had produced ricin, a deadly toxin, and possessed a digital copy of military studies in the jihad against the tyrants and Al-Qaeda training manual. Its investigators uncovered disturbing content on Rudakubana's devices, including graphic videos of torture and murder, as well as materials related to atrocities such as the Rwandan genocide. His interests spanned a wide range of violent themes from the Momo Rebellion to wars in Gaza, Ukraine, Sudan, Korea, Iraq, and the Balkans. Also discovered were cartoon depictions of violence and religious mockery, alongside explicit images of dead bodies and torture victims. Police confirmed that he purchased the knife used in the attack 2 weeks prior on July 13th. The prosecution painted a portrait of a meticulously planned and executed attack. They highlighted Rudakubana's obsession with violence, noting his prior attempts to produce ricin and his possession of extremist materials. Ursula Doyle of the Crown Prosecution Service described the assault as a meticulously planned rampage that left an enduring scar on the community and the nation due to its savagery and senselessness. And despite initially entering not guilty pleas in December 2024, Rudakubana changed course just before his trial. On January 20th, 2025, he pleaded guilty to all 16 charges: 3 murders, 10 attempted murders, possession of a knife, production of ricin, and a terrorism offense. His guilty plea avoided a lengthy trial. While Rudakubana's defense team did not contest the charges, they emphasized his age, which was 17 at the time of the attack, and his troubled background to help diminish his sentence. He pointed to his history of interactions with mental health services, social care authorities, and the youth justice system, suggesting systemic failures in addressing his behavioral issues. However, these factors did little to mitigate the gravity of his actions in the eyes of the court. The presiding judge, Mr. Justice Julian Goose, stated that a life sentence was inevitable. The courtroom bore witness to heart-wrenching testimonies from survivors and families of the victims. Dance instructor Leanne Lucas, who was injured during the attack, expressed profound guilt and trauma, stating, "As a 36-year-old woman, I cannot stay in my own home alone, cannot go to work." Families of the deceased children conveyed their immeasurable grief. One parent described their life as a state of permanent numbness, while another lamented a lifetime of grief in a world shattered beyond repair. On January 23, 2025, Justice Julian Goose delivered the sentence: life imprisonment with a minimum term of 52 years. He noted that had Rudakubana been 18 at the time of the offense, a whole life order would have been imposed. However, due to his age, he was sentenced to detention at His Majesty's pleasure, the equivalent. Justice Goose remarked on the severity of the crimes, stating, "The culpability in this extreme level of violence is equivalent in its seriousness to terrorist murders." He emphasized that the attack was meticulously planned, and that Rudakubana had shown no remorse. Axel had even told police it makes him happy that he had murdered 3 young children, and during his sentencing, told the court he was glad they're dead. This is Justice Julian Goose as he delivered the sentence.
The fact that whilst almost 18, he was still young. In sentencing, I will impose concurrent sentences, meaning they will all be served at the same time. However, I will treat the murder offences in counts 1 to 3 as the lead offences and take into account all of the total offending when fixing the minimum term of custody he must serve. Also, I have in mind the totality of the sentences, requiring me to take a step back and consider whether they are just and proportionate, and I conclude that they are. The guilty pleas will allow some small discount on the sentence because they were entered so late, on the first day of the trial. I turn to the attempted murder offences in counts 4 to 13. Each of these offences requires me to impose concurrent sentences of custody for life under Section 272 of the Sentencing Act 2020. Each offence is within Schedule 19 of the Act. I am satisfied in the circumstances of these offences that Rudakubana is a dangerous offender and that the circumstances justify the imposition of a life sentence. I must then fix the custodial term which he must serve. For each of the offences where he attempted to murder a child, being counts 4 to 11, the appropriate sentence guideline is Category A2 with a starting point for sentence of 30 years and a range up to 35 years. The very young age of each victim and the substantial planning by him requires me to increase that sentence to the top of the range before reducing it to reflect his age, his late guilty plea, and to reach the minimum term for these offences. Accordingly, I firstly reduce the sentence to 30 years for his age and 27 years for the guilty plea, leading to a minimum term of 18 years on each of counts 4 to 11 concurrently. On counts 12 and 13, which are attempted murder of the adults, Leanne Lucas and Jonathan Hayes, The guideline category is B2 with a starting point of 25 years and a range up to 30 years. With the same aggravating factors of seriousness and mitigation for counts 4 to 11, I increased the sentence to 30 years before reducing it to 27 years for age and to 24 years for guilty plea, leading to a minimum term on those two counts of 16 years concurrently. I now turn to the remaining counts. On count 14, having an article with a blade, the sentence is 18 months custody. This is a Category 1A offence for which I have reduced the sentence to reflect his age and plea. Count 15, production of a biological toxin. There is no offence-specific sentence guideline. I've been assisted by reference to the case of the Crown against Mohammed Ammar Ali, 2016 EWCA Crim 864, in which a sentence of 8 years imprisonment after conviction was upheld by the Court of Appeal, the decision based upon its own facts. I'm satisfied that his production in this case of ricin was more advanced and is associated with Rudakubana's mindset to cause many killings, whilst he had not used the ricin by the time of his arrest, taking into account his culpability and the harm risked, allowing for his age and guilty plea. I sentence him concurrently to 12 years custody. Count 16, possession of a document likely to be useful to a person preparing an act of terrorism. The sentence is 18 months custody after taking into account his age and plea and applying the guideline Category 3C. I'm now going to sentence Axel Rudakubana, having explained my reasons. On counts 1 to 3 murder, I sentence him to custody for life with a minimum term which he must serve in custody of 52 years, less the time he's served already. He's been in custody for 175 days on remand, which will be credited. Therefore, the minimum term is 51 years and 190 days. On counts 4 to 11, I sentence him concurrently to custody for life with a minimum term of 18 years, less 175 days served, on each count concurrently with each other. Allowing for his time served on remand, the minimum term on those counts is 17 years and 190 days. On counts 12 and 13, I sentence him concurrently to custody for life with a minimum term of 16 years, less his time served on remand, on each count concurrently with each other, leading to a minimum term on those counts of 15 years and 190 days. On counts 14 and 16, I sentence him to 18 months custody concurrently with each other and all other offences. He will pay the appropriate amount he will pay the appropriate amount under 18 statutory charge, which will be entered on the court record. Accordingly, in total, I sentence Rudakubana to 13 sentences of custody for life and a minimum term to be served in custody of 51 days and 190 days. It is highly likely that he will never be released.
During sentencing, Rudakubana disrupted proceedings by claiming medical issues. After multiple interruptions, Justice Goose ordered his removal, and the sentencing continued in his absence. Post-sentencing, Rudakubana was incarcerated in a high-security facility. He is in solitary confinement for his own safety, given the nature of his crimes. The public response has been one of outrage and sorrow, with many calling for legal reforms to allow for harsher penalties for juvenile offenders. The case has also prompted a public inquiry into the failures leading up to the attack. During the trial, it was revealed that Rudakubana had been referred to the UK's Prevent Counter-Extremism program 3 times but was not accepted due to a lack of identifiable terrorist ideology. An emergency review concluded that Prevent had followed correct procedures, but the case highlighted potential gaps in the system. While justice has been served in the legal sense, the scars left by this tragedy remain. The community of Southport continues to heal, honoring the memories of Alice, Bebe, and Elsie, and supporting the survivors and families affected. Loss. Aftermath. Even though the attack itself lasted just 14 minutes, its aftermath has been far-reaching, casting a long shadow over families, survivors, and an entire town. In the days following the stabbings, Southport became a town in mourning. Floral tributes covered the steps of the church where the victims had planned to perform. Pink ribbons were tied to lampposts and trees. Local businesses closed their doors in solidarity, and vigils were held in silence, broken only by sobs and prayers. The loss of Alice, Bebe, and Grace devastated 3 families and forever altered the lives of their surviving friends. Some of the injured victims are still undergoing rehabilitation, both physically and mentally. Others struggle daily with PTSD, anxiety, and survivor's guilt. Parents who once sent their children to dance class without a second thought now speak of fear, hesitation, and heartbreak. Teachers describe empty desks and hallways that feel too quiet. "We used to hear laughter echoing off these walls," one instructor said. "Now we hear silence." The town has called for stronger protections at public youth events. Some local MPs have urged for a review of the prevent scheme, demanding greater accountability for missed red flags. Southport schools have increased security and mental health support. A fund for the victims raised over £300,000 in its first month, with donations pouring in from across the country. As for Axel Rudakubana, he remains imprisoned, serving a minimum 52-year sentence. He has shown no public remorse. According to prison staff, he continues to require monitoring under high-security protocols. The town of Southport may one day rebuild, but it will never forget. And for many, the true sentence of this crime isn't measured in years, it's measured in absence. Thank you for watching. If this story has weighed heavily on you, you're not alone. Cases like this stay with us. They remind us how quickly the unthinkable can happen and how important it is to care for one another. Speak up when something feels wrong, and never take a single day for granted. Thank you for watching Factually Strange. Follow for more cases like this, stories that matter, that deserve to be remembered. And if you have thoughts about this case or want to share how it affected you, please feel free to leave a comment below. Till next time, be safe and be kind to one another.